The New York Islanders open training camp today. We have it all covered for you. The biggest stories, the biggest battles you can expect, and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Thursday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. We have got so much to discuss on today's show. This is the day Islander fans have been waiting for all offseason. Training camp starts now. Veterans report today, and the Islanders are officially back on the ice preparing for the 2025-2026 NHL season. We'll go through the training camp roster, have some key takeaways from that, and we'll talk about the biggest battles and key things to watch for in training camp. Plus, a former Islander gets one last opportunity to stick in the NHL. We'll talk about that and a lot more on today's show. I am happy. I am very happy because the Islanders are back in training camp. And this is something we've been looking forward to, obviously, since the Islanders were eliminated from the playoffs last year in April. And now this team can put that behind them and begin to build in the new Matthew Darche era. And there right now are more than 60 players who are reporting to the New York Islanders for training camp. 35 forwards, 18 defensemen, and 8 goaltenders. So you got a lot of bodies to start training camp. And look, they do this in order to have enough players to run all the drills they want to run. There are some guys here who are coming into training camp most likely as camp bodies. Guys who, let's face it, they're not making the New York Islanders out of training camp. Nothing wrong with that. They're there to make an impression. Some of these guys are looking for, whether it's a contract in the AHL or the ECHL, or just to get, a good look at the competition here. Their future can be determined, even if they're not going to be on the Islanders roster. Their future can be determined by a strong showing, or a weak showing for that matter, in training camp. And they're going to break up into multiple groups and practice and scrimmage and work on drills. But it is so, so good to know that the Islanders are back on the ice and preparing for the season. Now, one big story coming out of the day before training camp. Patrick Waugh telling the media he still isn't certain about the status of backup goalie Semyon Varlamov. Here's what he said to the media earlier this week. He said, when he was asked about Varley, "That I cannot tell. You're going to have to talk with Matthew Darche about that question, because he's the one who really talks to the trainers and see how it goes. But all I'm going to say, he's been skating, but I cannot say more than that. Here we are. I mean, as far as Varley is concerned, he got hurt back in, what was it, late November? And, we are now 10 months since in the injury almost, and he still may not be 100%. To me, you always have to try to read between the lines. Coaches and general managers and, all of these people, let's face it, they do speak to an extent in code. They're only able to say so much. In my mind, if Semyon Varlamov was ready to play hockey, if he was healthy enough to be participating fully in practice from day one, I think Patrick Waugh would have said so. I would find it difficult to believe that he wouldn't know whether, if Varley was ready to go, that, someone would have said something to him. So, again, we'll find out more in the next few days, and it could very well be. And everydayers, just go back a year, right? Go back a year. Ilya Sorokin had back surgery a year ago, off season. We didn't find that out until after the fact, right before training camp. He was not a full participant in training camp, and yet opening night, he's on the roster. So, again, it could be a process. Now, there is a difference with Semyon Varlamov in the sense that, Sorokin kind of crashed and burned at the end of the season. He was exhausted. He was hurt a year ago. But he was only really not playing hockey, not skating for the offseason, or even maybe a portion of the offseason. Varley, it's been, like I said, 10 months, practically. He may need more of a ramp-up time than Sorokin did a year ago, but hopefully the Islanders will give us a little more information as camp progresses. And, the thing is this. I get the feeling the Islanders are not obligated under NHL rules to say more than upper body, lower body. We know the drill. You can agree with it. You could disagree with it. That's the rule. Okay? But I think we will get more transparency under Matthew Darche than the vow of silence that we always got under the previous general manager. And hopefully Varley is ready, because let me say this. A healthy Semyon Varlamov is a big step up from either Marcus Hogberg or David Rittich. And that's nothing against Hogberg or Rittich. But, Varley, before the injury last year, was considered one of the better backup goalies in the league. Now he's 37. He's not the same goalie he was 5-6 years ago. I'm not saying that. And I think at this stage in his career, if he does return this season, he's got to prove that he's still one of the better backup goalies in the league. But right now, a healthy Varley, to me, is the Islanders' best option as the backup goalie. The question is he actually healthy enough to contribute and to compete? And I'll be fine, in all honesty, I will be fine if the Islanders announce, you know what? Varley is skating. He's still dealing with the after effects of the injury. He's rehabbing. He's working. He's skating. He's working out on his own. He'll probably start facing, returning to practice in fill in the blank, 2 weeks, a month, 6 weeks, whatever it is. And hopefully we'll have him back in 6 to 8 weeks. Whatever that timetable is, if he starts the season a little bit late, if he has to take a rehab stint in Bridgeport, for example, I'm fine with that. I think guys like Rittich and Hogberg, if you need them to step in and be the backup for the first month or so of the season, I don't think that's a problem. You go over 82 games, I think that's more of a problem. But a healthy Semyon Varlamov is a big boost to the Islanders because, look, everydayers, we've talked about this. You can't overwork Ilya Sorokin. I don't want Sorokin starting 13 out of 14 games. I don't want him starting 60 games in a season. I want those starts to be around 50 to 55 at most. 52 to 30 to me is kind of like the sweet spot, right? Last year it was 60 starts and 61 games for Sorokin. We saw, again, how it affected him at various times. So having a backup goalie you could trust, especially when you've got, 15 back-to-back games this year in an Olympic year, it becomes vital for the Islanders if they have any hopes of contending for one of the last playoff spots in the East. So we'll wait and see. We're waiting on Varley, but the fact that Patrick Waugh doesn't know yet, to me, means he's probably not ready. We'll find out for sure in the next couple of days. How about some of the battles for roster spots, for spots in the lineup? We're going to break down some of those. Plus, for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a present-day Islander who had a pretty good rookie year in the last season. We'll talk about him and his potential impact going forward. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. That's $300 in bonus bets to use across the app if your first $5 bet wins. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Do you like player props? Maybe building a same-game parlay to try to win even bigger, or you could jump in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if that first $5 bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com. Check it out today. Battles. Got to talk battles. One thing I like about where we're at right now with this team is that already in one offseason under Matthew Darche, the Islanders have more competition for lineup spots and roster spots than they've had in recent years. And it was interesting to me, and everydayers will recall because we talked about it earlier this week, that when Patrick Waugh gave his tentative first few lines, right? What was he addressing? What was he actually looking at? And all he did was give his top three lines. And, he even said after the fact, I kind of regret, I kind of regret even having said that. Could have done so many other things. It's all subject to change. He had a lot to say about the way it all plays out. But he didn't touch that bottom three, that fourth line. And there are a lot of options. And, you look at the players that he did not mention on, who are potential fourth liners. In my mind, I would like to see Casey Cizikas, center, Emil Heineman, and Mark Gatcomb. To me, that would be the ideal fourth line. But not so sure that's what we're going to see. Because Maxim Tsyplakov was not included in the top three lines. Now, I think he's better suited to be a middle six forward. Ultimately, he's got good size. He has the ability to score. I think he's ideally a third line guy who can bounce up to the second line as he continues to learn. But, you've got Casey Cizikas, Emil Heineman, Maxim Tsyplakov, Kyle McLean, Gatcomb, and Pierre Engvall battling for a spot on the fourth line and two extra forwards. And, Cal Ritchie also in that mix because, again, you've got four extra players, four extra forwards, if you count Ritchie, McLean, Gatcomb, Engvall. That's four guys, one of whom is considered a really highly regarded prospect in Ritchie. Engvall, say what you want about him, and I've been as critical of him as anybody at times as far as his inconsistent willingness to go to the dirty areas and shoot the puck and play the way Patrick Waugh wants him to play. He is an established NHL player. Kyle McLean has spent the last 2 years in the NHL. He's a fourth line guy, but he is an NHL caliber player. Mark Gatcomb had a really good second half of the year, signed a new deal. So these are guys who are NHL quality, even if they may not make this team. And it will be interesting to see. I still think these battles leave us open for trades. If Cal Ritchie makes the team, if he has a great camp and shows how ready he is, I could easily see before the season starts or shortly after the season starts, the Islanders making a trade, whether they can move J.G. Pajot, whether they can move Pierre Engvall, whether they can put someone on waivers. There are different ways to get the job done, but ultimately, you got to open up space for Cal Ritchie sometime between now and the trade deadline, assuming he stays healthy. And then on defense, again, I think you've got a couple of extra guys here competing for roster spots. We know Tony DeAngelo is going to make the roster. Alexander Romanov, Ryan Polak, Adam Pelech, those four are locks. And then you get to that third pair. You've got two left shot guys in Matthew Schaefer and Isaiah George battling for that third spot on the left side. And in my mind, I think that Schaefer probably starts the season on the NHL roster if he even has an average training camp. And then he gets up to 9 games to show whether he belongs in the NHL now or whether it's time for him to get a little more seasoning and head back to Erie and play there. And then come back next year. Isaiah George can pass through waivers, cannot be claimed. He can be sent down without having to pass through waivers. So that means his ability to make the team is probably reduced just by that technicality alone. But if Schaefer does get sent down to Erie, I think George is the number one candidate to step up and be that left shot defenseman. And again, as everydayers may recall, I do not want Isaiah George sitting in the press box. Whether he plays in Bridgeport or whether he plays with the big team, he needs to play. That's how you develop and get better. On the right side, you've got Scott Mayfield, Adam Boqvist, and Ethan Bear as sort of a long shot candidate. To me, I think Mayfield gets the nod. He would do a little bit better at mentoring Matthew Schaefer. He's more experienced and he's bigger. He could protect Schaefer to an extent on the ice if opposing players try to take liberties with the rookie. However, Boqvist and Bear kind of fit the style that Patrick Waugh prefers to play, the smaller, more mobile defenseman. So don't rule them out entirely. To me, Boqvist could be a really good seventh defenseman, and he would also be like an emergency forward in addition. Probably would come into play more mid-game, where if a forward gets hurt, you can. And if Boqvist is one of your defensemen, if you want to move him up and take the odd shift on the forward line, you could do that, especially if you're down a goal. But again, lot of questions. That's what camp is for. We're going to see how it all plays out. And I like the increased competition. I like the fact that more players are wearing their hair longer. More players are going back to facial hair, which they had and they liked before they signed up for Camp Lou. And that players can wear whatever number they want that hasn't been retired and gets approved by the team. So, these are little things, but to me, if I were an employee of a company, I'd prefer to have my own choices as well, as long as I don't overdo it. So the competition is exciting. Fans are looking forward to that, and I can't wait as training camp unfolds, and we will have training camp covered for you here on the Locked On Islanders podcast. First preseason game is Sunday. Can't wait for that either. We've got more to discuss on today's show. A former Islanders first-round pick has one more chance to make the NHL. We'll talk about that, plus our Islanders birthday of the day, coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. And hey, if you and your significant other are sharing accounts, Monarch can help both of you stay on the same page. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Got to mention this, and it's kind of sad, perhaps, in a way. But Oliver Wahlstrom now has a last chance to get back into the National Hockey League. The former first-round pick by the Islanders, he's 25 years old now, signed a PTO a couple of days ago with the San Jose Sharks. And unfortunately, Wally never worked out, never reached his potential in the NHL. He had his moments, but hasn't scored more than 13 goals in a season. And, he was drafted to be kind of a goal scorer. And they let him go last year after he scored only 2 goals in 27 games, placed him on waivers midway through December, claimed by the Bruins. He played 16 games there, 1 goal. And they did not qualify Wally. So he became an unrestricted free agent. Nobody offered him a full-time contract. So now he's going to San Jose. And I'll say this. First of all, Oliver Wahlstrom, hard not to root for the guy. Such a nice guy. Hard to not hope that he can go out there and make good. And if he can't make the Sharks, and this is nothing against the Sharks, this is a team that is rebuilding. They're in a full rebuild, long term. Yeah, we're going to be a pretty bad team for 5 years and build up our picks and prospects and then hope to have a dominant team. Well, they're sort of in like the 4th year of this 4 or 5 year we're going to be bad situation. This is the point for the Sharks that they want to start showing a little progress and not be one of the worst 2 or 3 teams in the NHL. Can they do it? We'll see. Can Oliver Wahlstrom help them? I hope so. He is the kind of player that in minor leagues seems to play very well, but his skating, his vision, his hockey IQ, and maybe he needs that extra half second to get his shot off. It's a good shot, heavy shot, but he maybe needs a little more time to get it off that he may not get very often in the NHL, and that's been one of the many factors that has impeded his game and his progress. So I'm pulling for Oliver Wahlstrom as he embarks on this quest to get a contract with the Sharks, whether he gets it at the NHL level or even if they just sign him to an AHL deal off a strong PTO and training camp. Got to be pulling for Oliver Wahlstrom. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. This is an easy one, although we are a day early. But Friday will be the 27th birthday of New York Islanders winger Maxim Tsyplakov, the native of Moscow, 6'3", 210 pounds. Had a 31-goal season in the KHL in 2023-2024 with Moscow Spartak. And joined the Islanders last year, had 10 goals, 35 points, and 39 penalty minutes in 77 games. He was a +4. And the thing about Sippy, Maxim Tsyplakov, there were times when he really looked like a 31-goal scorer from the KHL, and there were times when clearly he was adjusting to the North American game. This will be a pivotal season for Maxim Tsyplakov, and we'll see if he can handle it. One of his better games as an Islander, November 1st, 2024, Islanders in Buffalo to take on the Sabres. Ilya Sorokin and Devon Levy are the goalies. And in this game, with the score tied 1-1 in the second period, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Maxim Tsyplakov scores his second career NHL goal. It's unassisted. That puts the Islanders up 2-1. Then later on in that period, Islanders on the power play with Bowen Byram in the box for hooking. And Tsyplakov and Simon Holmstrom set up Kyle Palmieri for a power play goal. That puts the Isles up 3-1. They go on to win the game by a score of 4-3. But for Maxim Tsyplakov in this game, a goal, an assist. He was a +2. He had 2 penalty minutes, and he had 2 shots on goal in 15 minutes and 1 second of ice time. So this is a pivotal season for Maxim Tsyplakov. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no offseason. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever it is that's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR-VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. It's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we are back tomorrow. We will have a recap of day one of Islanders training camp. We'll have the latest news, notes, and happenings, and we'll look ahead to Sunday's preseason opener against the Philadelphia Flyers. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern time, Sunday night. Can't wait for that. Islanders hockey is back, baby. Until then, have a great day, everyone. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.